জনসাধারণের উন্নতি চাই। আমার মনে হয় দেশের জনসাধারণকে অবহেলা করাই আমাদের প্রবল জাতীয় পাপ, এবং তাই হলো আমাদের অবনতির অন্যতম কারণ। যতদিন না ভারতের সর্বসাধারণ ভালোভাবে শিক্ষিত হচ্ছে, ভালোভাবে খেতে পাচ্ছে, অভিজাত লোকেরা যতদিন না তাদের ভালোভাবে যত্ন নিচ্ছে, ততদিন যতই রাজনৈতিক আন্দোলন করা হোক না কেন, কিছুতেই কিছু হবে না। ভারতকে যদি পুনরুদ্ধার করতে হয়, আমাদের অবশ্যই তাদের জন্য কাজ করতে হবে। আমাদের মিশন হচ্ছে অনাথ, দরিদ্র, মূর্খ চাষাভূষদের জন্য, আগে তাদের জন্য করে, যদি সময় থাকে তো ভদ্রলোকের জন্য। জনসাধারণের দুর্দশার জন্য ধর্মের কোনো দোষ নেই। ভারতের দরিদ্র, ভারতের পতিত, ভারতের পাপীদের সাহায্যকারী কোনো বন্ধু নেই। তারা দিন দিন ডুবে যাচ্ছে। চিন্তাশীল ব্যক্তিরা কিছুদিন থেকে সমাজের এই দুরবস্থা বুঝেছেন, কিন্তু দুর্ভাগ্যক্রমে তারা হিন্দু ধর্মের ঘাড়ে এই দোষ চাপিয়েছেন। তারা মনে করেন জগতের মহত্তম এই ধর্মে বিনাশ সাধনেই উন্নতির একমাত্র উপায়। শোনো বন্ধু, প্রভুর কৃপায় আমি এর রহস্য আবিষ্কার করেছি। ধর্মের কোনো দোষ নেই। তোমাদের ধর্ম তো শেখাচ্ছেই জগতে যত প্রাণী আছে সকলকেই তোমরা আত্মার বহুরূপ মাত্র। সমাজের এই দুরবস্থার কারণ এই তত্ত্বকে কাজে পরিণত না করা। সহানুভূতি সম্ভব, সহানুভূতির অভাব, হৃদয়ের অভাব। সমাজের এই অবস্থাকে দূর করতে হবে, ধর্মকে নষ্ট করে নয়। হিন্দু ধর্মের মহান শিক্ষাকে অনুসরণ করে, আর তার সঙ্গে হিন্দু ধর্মের স্বাভাবিক পরিণতির যে বৌদ্ধ ধর্ম, তা অদ্ভুত ও সহানুভূতি ভাবকে যুক্ত করে। আধুনিক সংস্কারকেরা প্রথমে ভারতের ধর্ম নষ্ট না করে সংস্কারের আর কোনো উপায় দেখতে পান না। তারা চেষ্টা করেছেন, কিন্তু বিফল হয়েছেন। এর কারণ কি? কারণ তাদের মধ্যে খুব অল্প সংখ্যক লোকই তাদের নিজেদের ধর্ম ভালোভাবে পড়েছেন বা আলোচনা করেছেন, আর তাদের একজনও সকল ধর্মের প্রসূতিকে বোঝবার জন্য যে সাধনার প্রয়োজন, সেই সাধনার মধ্যে দিয়ে যাননি। আমি দাবি করছি যে হিন্দু সমাজের উন্নতির জন্য ধর্মকে নষ্ট করবার কোনো প্রয়োজন নেই, এবং ধর্মের জন্যই যে সমাজের এই অবস্থা তা নয়, বরং ধর্মকে সামাজিক ব্যাপারে যেভাবে কাজে লাগানো উচিত ছিল তা হয়নি বলেই সমাজের এই অবস্থা। আমি আমাদের প্রাচীন শাস্ত্র থেকে এর প্রত্যেকটি কথার প্রমাণ করতে প্রস্তুত। আমি এই শিক্ষাই দিতে থাকি এবং এই কাজটি পরিণত করবার জন্য আমাদের সারা জীবন চেষ্টা করে যেতে হবে। Russell, Authority and Individual, Lecture 2, Social Cohesion and Government. The original mechanism of social cohesion, as it is still to be found among the most primitive races, was one which operated through individual psychology without the need of anything that could be called government. There were no doubt tribal customs which all had to obey, but one must suppose that there was no impulse to disobedience of these customs, and no need of magistrates or policemen to enforce them. In old Stone Age times, so far as authority was concerned, the tribe seems to have lived in a state which we should now describe as anarchy, but it differed from what anarchy would be in modern community, owing to the fact that social impulses sufficiently controlled the acts of individuals. Men of the New Stone Age were already quite different. They had government authorities capable of exacting obedience and large-scale enforced cooperation. This is evident from their works as the primitive type of small tribe cohesion could not have produced Stonehenge, still less the pyramids. The enlargement of the social unit must have been mainly the result of war. If two tribes had a war of extermination, the victorious tribe, by the acquisition of new territory, would be able to increase its numbers. There would also in war be a obvious advantage in an alliance of two or more tribes. If the danger producing the alliance persisted, the alliance would in time become an amalgamation. When a unit becomes too large for all its members to know each other, there would come to be a need of some mechanism for arriving at collective decision, and this person to person. Very complicated psychological processes are involved when human beings get together. Now, although sociologists and social psychologists are both interested in people's social activities, the former tend to be interested in large groups within society. Political organizations, social classes, industrial concerns, whereas the latter are more concerned with small groups, 20 people or fewer. In practical terms, sociologists are hampered by their inability to do anything but simply observe what is happening and to guess why it is happening. They are not usually in a position to alter the way a large organization is run in order to explore the consequences. In other words, sociologists cannot carry out experiments in the normal sense of that word. This is not necessarily a crippling disadvantage. After all, astronomers cannot directly affect the workings of the universe to see what happens, but they have made major discoveries. In contrast to sociologists and astronomers, social psychologists can very readily carry out experiments. They can set up small groups, they can manipulate the activities in which such groups participate, and they can even decide who is allowed to talk to whom and when. Some of the choicest fruits of their labor are discussed in the chapters that follow. One of the saddest phenomena of contemporary human life is the well-known tendency for bystanders not to get involved when there is an accident or other emergency. This is often blamed on the generally uncaring and selfish attitudes of Western society. But there is a convincing evidence, chapter 1, that other factors were involved. For example, when we see other people not responding to emergency, we assume that nothing serious has happened. A particularly interesting and important question in social psychology is this: why are people attracted to one another? While people usually say that personal qualities such as friendliness, honesty, warmth are what matter most, research suggests that physical attractiveness is much more important than is generally supposed. Indeed, Michael Efron of the University of Toronto, Chapter 2, found out that jurors were less certain about the guilt of attractive defendant and recommended much milder punishment for them. In Chapter 3, we deal with the mysteries of nonverbal communication, touch, eye contact, smiling, personal face. This is the method of communication we use to express positive, negative feeling towards others. The most surprising thing about nonverbal communication is that often neither the communicator nor the recipient is aware of what is happening. Nevertheless, we send and receive nonverbal signals in an amazingly sensitive and well orchestrated way. Many social psychologists are interested in the effects of power status on human behavior. Lecture 5: Control and Initiative, Their Respective Spheres. A healthy and progressive society requires both central control and individual and group initiative. Without control, there is anarchy, and without initiative, there is stagnation. I want in this lecture to arrive at some general principles as to what matters should be controlled and what should be left to private or semi-private initiative, Some of the qualities that would wish to find in a community are in their essence static, while others are by their very nature dynamic. Speaking very roughly, we may expect the static qualities to be suitable for governmental control, while the dynamic qualities should be promoted by the initiative of individuals or groups. But if such initiative is to be possible, and if it is to be truthful rather than destructive, it will need to be fostered by appropriate institutions, and the safeguarding of such institutions will have to be one of the functions of the government. It is obvious that in a state of anarchy, there could not be universities or scientific research or publication of books, or even such simple things as seaside holidays. In our complex world, there cannot be fruitful initiative without government, but fortunately, there can be government without initiative. The primary aims of government, I suggest, should be three: security, justice, and conservation. There are things of the utmost importance to human happiness, and the things which only government can bring about. At the same time, no one of them is absolute. Each may, in some circumstances, have to be sacrificed in some degree for the sake of a greater degree of some other good. I shall say something about each in turn. Security, in the sense of protection of life and property, has always been recognized as one of the primary purposes of the state. Many states, however, while safeguarding law-abiding citizens against other citizens, have not thought it necessary to protect them against the state. Wherever there is arrest by administrative order and punishment without the process of law, private people have no security. However firmly the state may be established, and even an insistence of due process of law is insufficient